As an American, I understand that there are times when my country, the United States, may need to engage in some kind of act like this because they think it's necessary for our interest, maybe even for the interest of that country. The difference is, in this case, it seems to be covert. We now know that what we did in Syria was covert. And the accusation now is that what happened in Bolivia is covert. What's going on in Hong Kong is covert. Is the argument for both of those? Can you make the case? I'll start with you, Hong Kong.
Well, here's what you could say about it being covert. Even though a lot of these relationships between the Hong Kong opposition politicians, Hong Kong opposition media, and U.S. organizations and politicians are not secret, they aren't the official policy of the United States. So we do have some evidence of these, so-called covert operations. I'll run through a few of them just briefly. Let's start with the media. Jimmy Lai, who's the owner of the most widely read tabloid in Hong Kong, who actually was declared by the U.S. government via WikiLeaks cables, we know, as someone who has the ability to, quote, shift conversations, is someone with a lot of links to the U.S. Here he is speaking at the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies. Interestingly enough, during this conversation, he called the United States a country with, quote, moral authority over China. So that's interesting as well. But this is an organization, the FDD, with 2 former CIA directors advising them, as well as 12 former National Security Council members. So very embedded with—
Do the math, right?
Right. So not so far off from the United States government itself. Jimmy Lai is also a man who's met with people like Mike Pence, Mike Pompeo, Paul Wolfowitz, a meeting which he called, quote, not sinister. And he's also met with someone very closely called Mark Simon. Mark Simon's even been called Jimmy Lai's, quote, right-hand man. And this is a man who not only had a father working for the CIA, who actually did an internship at the CIA himself, although when he's asked about this connection, he says, oh, those CIA days, those days are behind me. But Jimmy Lai, interestingly enough, and I'm sorry to keep going here, but Jimmy Lai has also donated over 10 million Hong Kong dollars to the anti-China clique of political parties, which are called the Pan-Democrats in Hong Kong. And it's through this kind of money that people say a lot of his influence really is covert.
So what you're saying is that there's a direct tie between the folks who are actually doing the protests and the United States, something which, if we learned here in the United States that someone was doing that in our country, propagating essentially a protest or something in the streets, we would be furious.